Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Green Bay Football Show with the incomparable John Dodds, our producer, Jason Ruck. I'm Tom Pippins, delighted to be with you, and we're going to have a lot of fun breaking down the draft with one of the best ever. But first of all, it doesn't happen without Dave Heineck and Business Fitness. They are outstanding in every way themselves, Pro Bowl caliber. Let's hear from Business Fitness.
We weave NetSuite into the DNA of your business. There are many threads in your organization. Over time, some become tangled. When NetSuite is woven in as your primary business system, the overall fabric becomes smoother, stronger, and more flexible. We at Business Fitness are a NetSuite success agency. With decades of NetSuite experience across hundreds of clients ranging from 3 users to billion-dollar enterprises, we love what we do. Whether we're helping you implement NetSuite for the first time or helping you improve how it works for your company, our focus is our relationship with you and ensuring you get the most from your software. It all starts by us listening. We get to know you and your organization. We seek to understand the good things you are committed to accomplishing. And together, we create an amazing tapestry, one that serves your entire company, allowing you and your business to thrive at this unique moment in history. This is possible because we're an ambidextrous organization. We see the big picture and the details, enabling us to serve you in both creative and strategic ways. Contact us now to schedule a conversation. We'd love to help you weave NetSuite into the DNA of your business.
John, nobody gets better guests than you, and Chad Reuter, NFL.com. Just amazing in terms of his own breakdown of what the Packers did in the draft, and he gives them a very good grade, but we'll let him tell you about that. What do you think?
That's right. I first met Chad in the late 90s, was referred to his draft guide, which was over 375 pages, which is amazing for I think he was in his early 20s when he did it as a hobby, but as he got more publicity, I think he was starting to get actual scouts and people at teams that were commenting about his work in a positive way. So, interesting guy.
Chad Reuter, NFL.com. You're going to love him, and we certainly appreciate the fact that he's brought to you by Business Fitness and our friend, Dave Heineck.
I've known Chad for probably 25 years, and Chad, you have an interesting, talk about your background in sports. You started off in Madison, and I heard you on a radio station, and you had a 300-page draft report that even some of the NFL people would look at. And tell us how you started.
Well, you summed it up pretty good. I just started my own website and got rolling, got into the radio thing a little bit, produced the draft guide that the radio station put on their website as well as my website. And, just kind of went from there. I got a couple of opportunities to work in the media. And in 2012, I got hired by NFL Media, and I've been there ever since.
Terrific. I want to get your opinion on the 2022 draft. And what I like about Chad is he's from Wisconsin, so he's a very expert on the Green Bay Packers. So everything I can respect anyone that has a little bit of a Packer slant, although for the other 31 teams, he's very professional and objective, but he's got that little bit extra for the Packers.
Chad Reuter is big time, so I don't know if the Packers drafted any big-time players, Chad, in your mind, but obviously they go for defense and wait until they jump up in the second round to get Watson. What is your take on Quay Walker and Devonta Wyatt, first of all, please? Can they be impact players, Chad?
Yeah, I think Walker not only, can play next to Devondre Campbell inside, but he can also be a factor as a pass rusher if they ask him to do that. So I think that kind of versatility makes him a very good pick. And Devonta Wyatt is a guy projected in the late first round to Green Bay or Kansas City or, various teams that could use a guy that could play he could play in any system. You could put him outside in the 3-4. You can put him inside in different areas on a 4-3 base. So a very scheme versatile, explosive player that I think will be an excellent foil for Kenny Clark.
And Kenny Clark, other than Aaron Donald, is probably one of the top defensive tackles, but he could also be one of the best three-technique defensive ends in a 4-3 too. He's got some pass rush shimmy, and if you just have all he needs is someone that can take a double team away from him, and Wyatt could be the
and
guy.
Wyatt is the same way. He could play that same 5 technique spot on the outside of the tackle, and so you can use them. And these guys also make the edge rushers better. They can run stunts and things with Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith and free them up as well. So that's why they try to find some guys on that defensive line to go with Lowry and Clark to really make the whole front seven better.
Last year when I saw one of the games that just jumped out at me was the Bear game up in Lambeau. I think it was on a Sunday night or a Monday night. I can't remember what it was, but the Bears had their little scat backs. They got in the slot and they went to the outside, and the Packers didn't have enough speed in their front seven to get there, to get to the sideline. And every time I saw Georgia play, my mouth just watered. I'm thinking, put Jordan on the front, put Wyatt, put some of the speed guys on there. And I know on our blog I said, boy, get two or three of those guys if you can get those guys up. And they weren't the 2 or 3 guys that I thought they were going to take, but I think it's going to end up the same.
Yeah, they got the good value in the first round. Guys like Channing Tindall's good value in the third round, another speed guy. So they could have went that direction. Jordan Davis was gone before Green Bay picked, and so they couldn't pick that behemoth in the middle. So they got the guys in the right spots.
I think Dodgy wanted him to draft Gutekunst the entire Bulldogs team, but it wasn't really.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like what you're saying about that defense. Build that defense around Aaron Rodgers. So now you jump up in the second round to get Christian Watson. We've been told he might be the key to the draft. What is your take on that, Chet?
Yeah, he's got real potential. Coming from a lower level, you're not sure how they're going to make the transition, of course. But in terms of his ability to take a short pass and turn it into a long gain, much like Davante Adams, I think they saw a lot of that in his game. And, of course, he's got the height and the speed to get downfield as well. So he's sort of a mix of MVS and Davante Adams, I guess you could say. And when they, saw he was available at the beginning part of the second round, they made the decision to move up and get him, which typically I wouldn't love giving up a middle second round pick to move up a few spots and get a guy, right? Because you're basically 2 potential starters for one. But in their situation, given the loss of Adams, given the need they had for wide receiver and the value they saw in Watson, I got that move up a little bit more.
Of course, they have Sammy Watkins as well, and they've got Randall Cobb coming back, and I think the underrated Alan Lazard. Intrigued by the receiver Romeo Doubs, Nevada, 4th round. Your take on him, Chad, please.
Yeah, Douglas is he's a downfield threat again. You could see him kind of doing some of the old West Coast stuff as well, slants and crossings and stuff like that. So I think he can do a little bit of everything. Got to get a little more consistent catching the football, but he's got some physicality to him and some size. So a good day 3 pick for them.
And then what about the Nebraska wide receiver, Samori Toure?
Yeah, he's a little more sinewy, sort of a Donald Driver type in terms of a tough guy on the outside. He can do a little bit of everything. Isn't special necessarily in any one area, except the fact that he's productive. He moved up from Montana. He made that jump into the Big Ten and did a good job. So he was a guy I figured would go in the 7th round. There's a good value for him.
This draft had a 1994 feel to me in the offseason before the 95 draft. Sterling Sharp was the Packers' best player at the time, and they lost him due to a neck injury. So everyone thought, as Ron Wolf traded Mark Brunell, he traded back his 1st-round pick. He acquired multiple picks in the 3rd round. Everybody thought he was going to take those, package up to maybe get a J.J. Stokes or someone from UCLA at the top of the round, top of the 1st round. Instead, what they did was they took Craig Newsome, traded for Keith Jackson, took William Henderson, Antonio Freeman. I remember Bud Lee the Journal was really grilling Mike Holmgren when he came out for one of the breaks, saying, what did you do to replace Sharp? All the focus was on replacing Sharp. And Holmgren said, well, I like this Freeman kid. I think Freeman could really do it. And I think Joel Bushbaum said he was a long strider or something. So Bud kind of came back with that. But that draft, the Packers got a D minus, I think, at the day after when people looked at it, because everybody thought they needed to replace Sterling Sharp and they didn't. But looking back, they were the only team, 3 years later, they were only A-plus team because they got 5 starters from that. They had Adam Timmerman. They even drafted special teamer Travis Jervey, but they had Henderson, Brian Williams. It was just a tremendous draft for the Packers, and that really was it buttressed their Super Bowl chances. And I'm wondering, Devontae Adams leaves via trade. He wanted to leave and play for the Raiders. He wanted out of Green Bay, which is fine. And I'm wondering if instead of panicking and trading up for a wide receiver, did they do enough to improve the overall team that we could look back in 5 years and say, whoa, this is the way to go, just like they did in '94?
Well, and I think that'll be it's kind of up to Christian Watson, and it'll be the same, because if Antonio Freeman wouldn't have been any good, then things might have been a little different, right? I mean, so
Right.
it's really up to the Watson pick, and then guys like Lazard, and if Cobb can come back and be a little more productive this year. Sammy Watkins, you really can't plan on a lot from him. I mean, it's hard. It's a long stretch to be more than a potential AJ Green type contributor like he was for the Cardinals. Not there a lot, but he made some plays here and there. That's kind of what. So it's really the Watson pick is key, and then we'll see how these guys on defense. But I think. I think I gave them a very good grade because I think they got quality players at the point where you want to get them. They got the good value, and they didn't reach, and they didn't give up as much as the Lions did, for example, to move up, which they would have had to do to go get one of those top guys. So in terms of giving up a second round pick to move up and get Watson, that's fine. And they met a lot of other needs. Very few teams have one need, and that's it. And they had spots that they had to hit all over the team, and you just can't give away the farm for one guy. That doesn't make much sense. So I think they did a good job overall improving the team, and I suspect we'll find that out in 2-3 years.
He's Chad Reuter, the outstanding draft analyst from NFL.com. What about some of these old linemen, Chad? You look at Sean Bryan out of UCLA and Zach Tom, Wake Forest, going down to Rasheed Walker, Penn State. Can they be players who will be steady and have an impact on that O-line?
Yeah, I think Ryan and Tom are definitely going to be there. Walker is a little more of a project, but in the 7th round, I think that was a good pick. You got to like the versatility of Ryan and Tom. Ryan reminded me not of playing style of David Bakhtiari, but in terms of value, the guy from the Pac-12 that was a little underrated coming out. I had a 2nd-round grade on Bakhtiari, and he went in the 4th. Ryan was in that 2nd, 3rd round area as a guard, probably, who could play tackle if need be, much like Elton James. So I think if you put him at guard, Tom can play center or a little bit of tackle if needed. So I think that versatility really adds to the offensive line.
I thought the stat of the year last year and really told you how good the Packer coaching and personnel departments are is at San Francisco, I think it was week 2 or 3, the Packers won on the road, and they had a stat that came up that 4 of the 5 offensive linemen in Green Bay in that game had not started more than twice in the NFL. And it was Nidman at left tackle, Runyon, who was in his, I think, 3rd start, Myers in his 2nd start, and Newman, the rookie, at right guard, and then there was Turner. So when I saw those 3 linemen being taken in the draft last week, I was thinking that maybe Bakhtiari they're not counting on, or Jenkins. Those are ACL injuries that they're coming back, and they wanted to buttress that position.
Yeah, I don't think you can have too much depth at the offensive line, honestly, because injuries happen. You got to get the right 5 guys on the field, though, and them working as a group. And that's the case as much as any other position in the game. So You need to be able to figure that out in the off season. Who works best where? What's your best group that to start off with, and then, like you said, if Bakhtiari and Jenkins kind of come back in a little bit later, where do they fit in the equation? So they also picked up undrafted free agents, and so they want to make sure that that group is good to go going into the season.
Chad, you look at the fact that the Packers went more for need than they did best player available, filling slots and going after people who could be good special teams players. The mention of Tariq Carpenter, I believe, the big kid who has some real. I like what John said, pass rush shimmy. I don't know if at least he has shimmy. I love that. Is that your take? And what is the overall grade that you gave the draft? I think fans would really love to hear that. Please.
Well, I gave them an A, and I don't think they reached for need. And frankly, the whole best player available versus need is a little overrated because you can find at any particular spot in the draft, you can find 3 or 4 players of good value that happen to be in need. And then, that kind of feeds into teams' draft boards too, even though, teams don't really think about it that way. But let's just say that Green Bay had 6 wide receivers with first round grades. Some other teams may not. They may have only had 3 or 4, but because obvious need there for Green Bay, that's going to feed into their board a little bit. So I don't think they met need. I think they got good players at good value, and they happened to meet needs. And I think that's why I gave them a really good grade. Most of the guys were picked in the area that I figured they'd pick in, and then they also happened to, fill a roster spot. And I think that's really the hallmark of a good draft.
Chad, did Brian Gutekunst and his staff fortify the team to the extent that they can be even better than last year, notwithstanding the loss of Devontae Adams?
Yeah, I mean, I think it also depends on injuries, right? If they get a healthy Bakhtiari back, so I think that has more to do with it than anything else. I think they did a good job in this draft, building on defense, which they needed to do. They found wide receiver help, and then kind of sprinkle the rest of those picks around in some of the more important areas. So it's really going to be up to injuries at this point and schedule and how things play out this year more than, talent level better this year than last year.
I thought the Packers were very fortunate in that their needs as a team fit the draft strength of positions perfectly this year. They didn't need a quarterback. It was weak at quarterbacks. They needed the draft seemed to be very good at wide receiver, tight end, offensive lineman, edge, and defensive line. And it seemed like the only position where they missed out, where it just didn't fit when they came up, was tight end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think they expect more out of the tight ends that they have this year if they can stay healthy. So I think that's another thing that plays in their favor. And so, I think you're right in terms of the way that things played out. But honestly, like most teams, they have needs all over the place. So you can make the draft fit what you need on your team if you look for the right value and don't reach for a guy, just because he happens to fit a need that you think. A lot of people think teams should go after the draft like they're in the grocery store. Aisle 1, they need, a cornerback first, so they got to go to aisle 1 and get a cornerback, and then round 2 is aisle 2, and they go get a pass rusher. You can't approach it that way because then you miss out on really good players. So I think in most drafts, there's enough talent throughout where you can hit your needs. And some, worse than others. There's variation, but overall, I think most drafts you can find a guy at some point in the draft that meets a need for you.
You can stack your team and stack the draft, but in terms of best player available, you want to do that at the top of your board. Pick who's there because the NFL is a 17-week war of attrition, and those guys are going to be playing. So if you have 2 good middle linebackers and you see a great middle linebacker, take him because he could be starting in week 16 anyway.
Yeah, you want to say that, but then you get the opposite where it was like, let's just say they would have selected a cornerback in round 1, right? People say, wait a minute, we just gave all that money. We didn't get a wide receiver. So teams have to fill needs because otherwise you're halfway through the season and you're like, well, we knew this was a need coming in and we didn't address it, right? So I'm with you on halfway there. And that's why, like in the first round, when they picked, 5 technique and wide, and you get a linebacker in Walker, well, those guys are going to play. you know they had needs and they didn't reach for that receiver or they didn't trade up into the top 10. So they sort of got that best player available in the first round. But boy, if they wouldn't have got Watson in the second round and they would have waited until round 3 or 4, we would have been talking about 1995 again.
Right.
Yeah, he might be the forgotten man in all this. Second round pick last year, Amari Rodgers, somewhat of a forgettable rookie season. Obviously takes time to grow. Do you still think that this kid has a high ceiling and will be, Chad, a standout receiver in the league?
Yeah, I think he will. I think rookie receivers have it tough. They're not all Jamar Chase, right? And frankly, he didn't get on the field as much as he did because they brought in Randall Cobb, right? He's very similar to Randall Cobb. And if they don't, depending on what happens this year with Cobb and Rodgers and you know what they do with Watson and who's on the outside. I mean, it's a whole dynamic of which receivers play and which don't. And then again, if guys don't get injured, like we didn't have some guys got injured last year, but like Adams wasn't out and Cobb wasn't out. So like if one of those guys goes down, then maybe Amari Rodgers gets more time. So it's really opportunity more than anything else. And I think he'll take advantage of any opportunity he gets this year. Because in the third round last year, he went the exact pick that I projected in my 7th-round mock draft, but I had Tennessee taking him instead of the Packers trading into that with Tennessee. So he went exactly where I thought he would go. I think he's got potential to be a good slot guy, returner if he gets more opportunities there. So, yeah, I think I would expect a step up from him in year 2.
On day 3 this year, the Packers took 3 consecutive defensive players. In round 5, they took outside linebacker, edge rusher, Kingsley Enagbare. With all apologies to
well done. I think it's pretty darn
thank
close.
you. Tariq Carpenter and Jonathan Ford, the defensive tackle. Just wanted to find what were your thoughts on those 3?
Yeah, Enagbare I thought would go in round 3 or early round 4, so they got a really good value with him. He's not exactly the bendiest guy off the edge ever, but he's got power, and he's going to play, he's going to hold the edge against the run. So really good value there. They needed a stronger backup edge rusher. So that was something they really needed, and they got with him. Carpenter, as you mentioned earlier, special teams, backup linebacker kind of guy that you really need on this team. And then Jonathan Ford's actually a guy that he could have come out in the draft last year, but he decided to use that extra year of eligibility because of COVID. And I figured he'd be a 6th, 7th round pick as a sort of a TD Slayton backup kind of guy, could kind of eat that space in the middle. So he's a really good value there in the 7th.
Slayton's an interesting player because if you put him at nose tackle and then put Kenny Clark and then Wyatt outside,
that's right.
You have some. I think you have something there. The key is always stopping the run. My favorite defensive line of the last 25 years was that 2010 Dom Capers defense where they had multiple nose tackles. They had Raji, they had Jenkins, they had Green, they had Pickett. So those are 4 nose tackles that they're having defensive line. You control the defensive line against the run. You control the game.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see if they use, teams are going more multiple and, maybe using more for lineman sets on early downs or when a team is going to try to control the clock. So we'll see if that comes into play now that they have a little more depth on the defensive line.
Chad, what do you think is going to happen with Jordan Love? Will he be a starter in the league, possibly for Green Bay, or will they send him out?
Yeah, unfortunately, because he had the COVID situation that didn't really give him a good training camp, and then obviously he's not getting a whole lot of reps with the ones last year, except for the 2 times that Rodgers was out. There's still the book's yet to be written about him. But if Rodgers is really said he's going to be there for 2 more years, it might be difficult for Jordan to get that opportunity in Green Bay. So I wouldn't be shocked if he got traded during training camp this year. If another team, say, has an injury at quarterback and they want to bring in somebody else, it wouldn't shock me if they traded him. But I thought he was a good pick. I thought he had some real potential coming out. So hopefully he'll get some opportunities this preseason to show what he can do now that he's a little more comfortable with the offense. Got some new guys around him, see if they can work out some, chemistry and see what he can really do, either as a tryout for Green Bay in the future or for another team.
Right.
Yeah, I remember Aaron Rodgers did not show a pulse for 2 years. And I tend to give the benefit of the doubt to all the rookies that I've looked at. And that second year, he played in the New England game. Favre got a neck injury and he left the game, or a stinger. And I think he broke his foot after 2 plays and then played the rest of the game. They lost 35-0. And he couldn't play the rest of the year. And then the next year, the third year, he came in and he had spent the offseason learning the offense. And he ate a little humble pie, it seemed, and the veterans really started to like him that third year. And he changed his throwing motion. He gave up that release, that Tedford release, and he started whipping it a little bit with some hip and leg action. And he was absolutely a different quarterback that third year.
Yeah, guys grow, and if they're coached well, that helps. And as they mature, especially like Aaron came out a year early, so did Jordan. So, it takes some time for some guys, and it might work out and it might not. We don't know yet, but you got to give them the benefit of the doubt with more time, more reps with the ones and stuff like that during the summer, trying to get them in. And people forget when they picked him what had happened previously, that Aaron had missed, half of 2 seasons, within the last 5 years. And he was not playing at an MVP level in 2019. So even if Love's selection turned Rodgers to ramp up his game a little bit over the next couple of years, it was worth the pick.
Chad Reuter, NFL.com. Love the fact, John Dodds, that he gives the Packers an A in the draft. I love it a lot.
Yeah, Chad works hard, does his homework, so that does mean a lot. Obviously, we won't know for sure until they show up at camp, but it's first step, okay.
Well, if the Packers draft is as good as business fitness, then we've got something there. Our friend Dave Heineck makes it all happen. Your sheep's head, buddy, that's the best ever. And there are some wonderful testimonials to exactly what they're doing at business fitness. So here we go.
I've seen a lot of failed implementations of good software. Any kind of CRM or ERP platform, usually the success is not in the platform itself or what it can or cannot do, it's about how you implement it. And the one thing I've seen with NetSuite is you can make it great. It's a great platform to build and change with your business. Especially with our company, we grew from startup to a medium to large size company in a matter of 6 years. And with that explosive growth, we've had to change rapidly, and Business Fitness has been along the ride with us and changing our NetSuite instance for us along the way. They provided the people with the right knowledge that can really get to the heart of what we're trying to accomplish. And they just know the right solution to the problem, not overly complicated and not too simple that it won't work. Sometimes we need them for many hours in a month, and sometimes we need less, and they've been able to really flex to meet our needs. Working with them has been a joy, and it's been great.
Well, that's a wrap on the latest edition of the Green Bay Football Show. John Dodds, we do this again next Saturday, 10 a.m., May 24.
Let's do it. Thanks to Dave Heineck. We appreciate his sponsorship.
Yeah, I appreciate you, and I appreciate our producer, Jason Ruck. Until next time, everybody, go Pack and God bless. We'll see you. Thanks for tuning in.